David Lynch. His signature shot is a slow, surreal push-in.
Asks, how did I learn to write screenplays?
Gliding the camera toward a dark void, a trembling face, or some seemingly mundane object that hides something sinister. It's not just visual style, it's psychological design. Lynch uses this motion to lure the viewer into a dreamlike headspace where reality and subconscious bleed together. Often, his shots don't move at all. They drift, slowly, uneasily.
Action!
Like a memory you're trying to forget. In Blue Velvet, 1986, the camera dives beneath a pristine lawn to reveal insects writhing in the dirt, a literal descent into the rot hiding under suburbia. In Mulholland Drive, 2001, the Winky's diner scene unfolds with a creeping dolly that builds unbearable tension before anything even happens. The movement isn't fast or flashy. It's deliberate, hypnotic, and just off-center enough to feel wrong. Lynch favors deep blacks, thick shadows, and practical lighting. He often frames characters in dim isolation, surrounded by darkness, with a single overhead bulb or lamp cutting through. It makes his worlds feel intimate yet vast. His use of ambient sound heightens the dread. A low hum, a flicker, a breath. You're not watching danger, you're slowly being pulled toward it. He's also known for shifting into unseen perspectives. In Lost Highway, 1997,
Starting with the O.J. Simpson trial that I was kind of obsessed with.
the camera floats down a dark hallway like a ghost. In Twin Peaks, Fire Walk with Me, 1992,
Shut the This isn't funny, Laura. This is not funny.
it glides through FBI offices and surreal hotel rooms without explanation. In The Elephant Man, 1980, Lynch opens with a surreal slow zoom through swirling fog, paired with a distorted soundscape that feels more internal than external. Lynch frequently collaborates with cinematographers like Frederick Elms and Peter Deming to shape these visions. In Eraserhead, 1977,
Believe it or not, Eraserhead is my most spiritual film.
they use extreme contrast, wide lenses, and industrial haze. In Inland Empire, 2006, Lynch shot the entire film with a handheld Sony PD-150 camcorder, embracing digital noise and blown-out light to blur the line between footage and hallucination.
And other ideas came into Inland Empire.
He once said, "A film is a picture and a feeling together." And in another interview, he added, "The world is way, way more than what you can just see." That's the core of his style. His camera doesn't record. It remembers. It haunts. And once it starts drifting into the void, you're already too far in to pull back. Sam Raimi. His signature shot is the kinetic, chaotic, shaky cam.
You get this energy going where the audience collectively gets afraid and it spreads throughout the crowd like wildfire.
A low-budget invention that launched a visual legacy. It's more than just a camera move. It's a storytelling weapon. Raimi's lens doesn't just show you the action, it throws you headfirst into it, often from the POV of a demonic entity, a bullet, or a fist flying through the air. His camera isn't a passive observer, it's a maniac. The origins of the shaky cam trace back to The Evil Dead, 1981. Raimi and his team bolted a 16mm camera onto a wooden 2x4 and literally ran it through the forest.
No, it was the woods themselves. They're alive, actually.
The result was a violent, swooping rush toward the cabin, a demonic force's perspective, full of energy and panic. It was crude, but effective. The shot became so iconic that Raimi brought it back in Evil Dead 2, 1987.
Now, from the creator of Evil Dead, comes Evil Dead 2.
This time refined with better rigs and more outrageous choreography. In both cases, the camera flies through windows, doors, and trees with unstoppable momentum. Raimi's kinetic style blends speed with exaggeration. He favors wide-angle lenses, often 10mm to 18mm, to distort space and exaggerate movement. His shots slam into actors' faces with crash zooms, whip violently from one subject to another, or flip upside down during chaos. In Drag Me to Hell, 2009, he revives these tricks with modern polish. The camera swirls, zooms, and stutters as if possessed. It's campy, but deliberate. Another Raimi signature is his use of POV. In Spider-Man 2002, he uses a digital camera to rocket through the skyline from Spider-Man's view, twisting between buildings and cranes. In Darkman 1990, he mounts the camera to the actor for a dizzying ride through the character's breakdown. These aren't standard coverage shots, they're part of the action itself. Raimi also loves visual rhythm. In Army of Darkness 1992, he uses rapid push-ins, crash zooms, and whip pans to match the tempo of slapstick fights. It's Looney Tunes meets horror, the Three Stooges with blood. And it works because Raimi treats the camera as a cartoon character. It reacts, it exaggerates, it plays along. He collaborates closely with his cinematographers to achieve this style. With Bill Pope on Spider-Man 2, 2004, Raimi created some of the most inventive sequences in superhero cinema. The Doc Ock hospital scene is pure Raimi. Frenetic editing, screaming close-ups, tentacles whipping across the lens, but the camera always tells a story. It's chaotic, but never confusing. Lighting in Raimi's world is bold and contrasty. He often uses spotlights and colored gels, deep blues, sickly greens, fiery reds, to heighten tension or comedy. Shadow stretch, light flickers, it all serves the mood. Even in broad daylight, as in the goat scene from Drag Me to Hell, Raimi finds a way to make the lighting theatrical and off-kilter. He once said, "The camera can do anything the mind can imagine." That's Raimi's ethos. He doesn't just use the camera, he weaponizes it. His shots scream, laugh, and sprint. And whether you're flying through a forest or zooming into a villain's eye, you always know who's behind the lens. The Coen Brothers have a visual style that's deceptively simple until you try to imitate it.
Traditional American music in general, and that's the music that preceded the folk revival. And
Their most iconic shot isn't flashy or fast, it's the precisely framed, wide-angle composition that sits perfectly still, quietly observing absurdity unfold. Often symmetrical, often static, and always purposeful, their camera doesn't chase the action. It waits for it. That restraint is what makes their style so distinct. Working with cinematographers like Barry Sonnenfeld in their early films and later Roger Deakins, the Coens have consistently favored wide-angle lenses, typically 27mm or 32mm, that give their frames a subtle distortion, just enough to make a character feel exaggerated within the space. This allows for a kind of visual comedy where characters seem trapped by their environment. Think of the opening shot of Fargo, 1996. A snow-covered highway stretching endlessly into the horizon, with a lone car dotting the vast emptiness. Or the framing of A Serious Man, 2009, where characters are centered dead on, flanked by sterile suburban backdrops, their existential crises rendered absurd by geometry. The Coens rarely move the camera without intent. When they do, the motion is smooth, slow dollies, creeping zooms, or sudden whip pans used as punchlines. In Blood Simple, 1984, their debut, a bar scene features the camera dollying forward until it nearly collides with a drunk slumped at the bar, then lifts up and floats over him without cutting. It's elegant, strange, and darkly funny, just like the scene itself. In The Big Lebowski, 1998, they mount the camera on a bowling ball and let it roll down the lane. It's a gag, but also a POV shot that deepens the world they were building. Their comedic timing is enhanced by locked-off compositions. In Raising Arizona, 1987, the camera sits back and lets chaos fill the frame. Bikes flying, babies crawling, dogs sprinting, all within a wide shot that never loses control. Even their more action-heavy films like No Country for Old Men, 2007, use stillness and silence instead of handheld urgency. The camera observes Anton Chigurh like a surveillance drone, steady, calculated, judgmental. Lighting in their films is naturalistic but stylized. Deakins often shoots with soft sources and high contrast, creating frames that feel grounded but painterly. Interiors in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, 2000, are drenched in sepia, evoking Dust Bowl photographs. In Miller's Crossing, 1990, fog and backlight cut through the forest, turning a mob hit into an operatic set piece. They also love absurd point-of-view shots. In Hail, Caesar, 2016, we see a submarine hatch from below. In Barton Fink, 1991, the camera peers through a mosquito net or zooms in slowly on a peeling wallpaper. These aren't just quirks, they reflect a worldview. The Coens see their characters as trapped in systems they barely understand, and their camera makes that claustrophobia visible. Roger Deakins once said, "They storyboard everything. Every shot has a purpose." That's the Coens in a sentence. Their frames are tight, their motion is minimal, their style is dry, precise, and quietly brilliant. You don't always notice the Coen Brothers shot, but when you do, it's already too late. It's been watching you the whole time. Peter Jackson's camera doesn't just capture scale, it creates it. His signature shot is the sweeping,
but you didn't recognize me.
high-altitude tracking move that glides through vast landscapes, often starting wide and then swooping down into the heart of a scene. In Jackson's world, movement is majesty. The camera doesn't sit still. It soars, dives, and hovers like a curious observer with wings, and no series exemplifies that more than the Lord of the Rings trilogy, 2001 to 2003. Those films redefined what fantasy could look like on screen. In The Fellowship of the Ring, 2001, the camera follows the Fellowship trekking across mountain ranges, pulling wide to show their isolation, then rushing in to capture their urgency. These transitions between macro and micro scale, achieved through helicopters, cranes, and eventually CGI-enhanced drones, became a Jackson hallmark. He doesn't just want you to see the journey, he wants you to feel its size. But Jackson's genius goes beyond movement. He's also the modern master of forced perspective. In scenes where hobbits and wizards share the frame, Jackson used real-time tricks to manipulate size. Sets were built at irregular angles. Moving platforms were timed to slide in sync with the camera's pan. In The Hobbit, 2012, he upgraded the technique using split-focus diopters and motion-controlled cameras, allowing actors to interact naturally while appearing radically different in size. These effects weren't just technical. They were emotional. They helped ground the fantasy in something tactile and believable. His close-ups are equally strategic. Jackson often uses wide lenses, 14mm or 18mm, to get uncomfortably close to his actors while keeping the background in view. When Frodo feels the pull of the ring, the camera slowly creeps in, distorting his face while keeping the environment unnaturally sharp. That tension between intimacy and distortion mirrors the character's unraveling psyche. Lighting in Jackson's films leans epic and theatrical. His cinematographer, Andrew Lesnie, often bathed scenes in golden light with deep shadows and saturated tones. Battle sequences, like the Siege of Helm's Deep in The Two Towers, 2002, are shot at night with rain and blue-gray palettes, while emotional beats use warm tones and soft glows.
We're lost. I don't think Gandalf meant for us to come this way. He didn't mean for a lot of things to happen, Sam.
In quieter moments, like the Grey Havens in Return of the King, 2003, the lighting softens into storybook melancholy. He also loves a dramatic pullback. After intense dialogue or a key reveal, Jackson will cut to a wide, moving crane shot that suddenly reminds the viewer just how massive the stakes are. In King Kong, 2005, he uses this technique repeatedly, zooming in on a roar, then pulling away to reveal the full jungle, the skyline, or the Empire State Building in silhouette. Jackson once described filmmaking as opening a window to another world. That philosophy shows in his visuals. Whether it's a landscape, a face, or a battlefield, he wants the camera to take you somewhere impossible and make it feel real. His shots are large, emotional, and deeply engineered, but you don't notice the complexity, you just feel the scale. Robert Eggers shoots like he's discovered a lost camera from another century.
I don't like accidents. I don't like improvisation. I like to just do it.
His signature look isn't defined by movement or color. It's built on stillness, texture, and historical precision. Every frame feels like an unearthed artifact, lit by candlelight and captured with techniques most modern directors have abandoned. In Eggers' world, the shot is part of the period. The camera doesn't just observe the past, it resurrects it. In The Lighthouse, 2019, Eggers used a nearly square 1.19:1 aspect ratio, black and white 35mm film, and vintage Balter lenses from the 1930s. The format immediately boxes the characters in. They're isolated, framed tight within the flickering light of oil lamps, surrounded by deep shadows and roaring surf. The image feels old, but not nostalgic. It's harsh, high contrast, and claustrophobic. There's almost no digital polish. Eggers even added a cyan filter to simulate orthochromatic film stock, which renders reds as black and blues as ghostly pale, creating unsettling skin tones and a stark, unearthly glow. That commitment to authenticity runs through all his work. In The Witch, 2015,
leaving our country, kindred.
He lit entire scenes with only candles and daylight. There's no cinematic flair, just natural gloom. The camera rarely moves quickly. It lingers, it creeps, it observes. His most terrifying moments are often shot in static wides, with the subject tiny against a looming forest or pale sky. Instead of punch-ins or crash zooms, Eggers uses silence, symmetry, and slow push-ins to unnerve the viewer. The Northman, 2022, continued this visual language but added large-scale movement. Eggers built entire Viking villages on location, then choreographed long takes through fire-lit battles and wind-blown rituals. The camera tracks slowly through the carnage, never rushing, letting the brutality unfold with ritualistic detachment. His cinematographer, Jarin Blaschka, often shot wide open with vintage lenses to retain a soft, painterly focus fall-off. The result is historical fiction that looks like it was filmed by a ghost with a time machine. Framing is everything in an Eggers film. He often uses centered compositions that evoke oil paintings or early photography. Characters face forward, unmoving, sometimes flanked symmetrically by candles, windows, or trees. In The Lighthouse, Thomas and Ephraim often share the frame, shoulder to shoulder, trapped in a visual box. When they fight, the framing doesn't follow. It just watches, locked in place, like an impartial judge. Sound design plays a huge role in reinforcing the visual dread. Creaking wood, howling wind, distant groans, they fill the space around the image.
It is one of the best, perhaps the best Gothic.
Eggers once said, "Silence is scarier than sound because it demands you fill it with your own dread." That philosophy extends to his lighting, movement, and even lens choice. He doesn't decorate his shots, he strips them bare. Every shadow, every scratch of film grain, every flicker of candlelight feels earned. His camera doesn't embellish, it reports. But that simplicity is deceptive. Eggers' images carry a dense weight of history, of myth, of unease. When his frame locks in place, you don't just see the moment, you feel like you're trapped inside it. Ridley Scott doesn't just light a scene, he fills it with atmosphere. His most iconic shots are drenched in haze.
There's no book on what I do. The danger
layered with shadows and pierced by sculpted beams of light cutting through fog or smoke. It's not stylized for its own sake. It's designed to make the world feel alive, tangible, and vast. In a Ridley Scott frame, air has texture, light has weight, and every surface seems to breathe. His breakthrough moment came with Alien, 1979. The interior of the Nostromo isn't sleek. It's damp, dark, and claustrophobic. Scott fills the corridors with steam, flickering lights, and low, rumbling ambience. The cinematography, courtesy of Derek Van Lint, uses strong backlight and soft key sources to create deep shadows and harsh highlights. Every frame feels industrial, gritty, and lived in. You don't just see the space, you feel how cold and lonely it is. Then came Blade Runner, 1982. Arguably one of the most imitated visual styles in cinema history, its look is a direct result of Scott's obsession with atmosphere. He and cinematographer Jordan Cronenweth created a world of constant drizzle, neon reflections, and smoke-wrapped buildings. Windows beam with diffused light, and every room is cut by shafts pouring in through Venetian blinds. The characters are dwarfed by their surroundings, walking through silhouettes, puddles, and flickering ad screens. The effect is dreamlike but grounded. Science fiction that feels dirty, futurism built from ruin. Scott often uses anamorphic widescreen lenses to emphasize depth and symmetry. His frames are structured with strong vanishing points and powerful geometric blocking. In Gladiator, 2000, Maximus stands center frame, backlit by golden dusk as dust swirls around him. In Kingdom of Heaven, 2005, armies stretch to the edge of the frame, and cathedrals loom above characters in perfect architectural balance. Scott wants the viewer to understand the scale of what's at stake, both visually and emotionally. Color is another tool in his palette. In Black Hawk Down, 2001, he leans into desaturated, bleach bypass grading to make the dust and blood feel raw. In The Martian, 2015, orange Martian terrain clashes with sterile, white NASA interiors. In The Duelist, 1977, he bathes 19th century France in candlelight and natural shadow, invoking a painterly feel that critics compared to Kubrick's Barry Lyndon. Even in fast-paced action, Scott keeps his images controlled. He shoots coverage with multiple cameras and light scenes for 360-degree freedom, allowing editors to cut freely without losing continuity. In Gladiator, the Battle of Germania mixes handheld chaos with carefully timed crane shots that rise above the smoke, giving the viewer both the immediacy of the fight and the grandeur of war. Scott once said, "Light is the magician. Without it, you've got nothing." That philosophy guides every frame he composes. He doesn't rely on movement or tricks to sell emotion. He builds worlds from texture, smoke, shadow, sunlight, and then lets the characters move through them. A Ridley Scott shot isn't just cinematic, it's sculpted. It's lit like a painting, but alive like a storm. And once the fog rolls in, you know exactly whose world you've stepped into. Michael Mann's world comes alive after dark. His most iconic shots take place under sodium streetlights, against glowing skylines, or in the silence between gunshots. Mann doesn't just film cities, he turns them into characters. His signature style is the nighttime urban frame, cool-toned, precise, and soaked in realism. It's slick but grounded, digital but intimate. Collateral, 2004, marked a turning point. Mann shot most of the film with the Thomson Viper Filmstream digital camera, one of the first major Hollywood productions to fully embrace HD video. He didn't choose it for novelty, he chose it for how it saw the city. Unlike film, the Viper could pick up subtle variations in shadow, distant streetlights, and cloud-covered skies at 3 a.m. Los Angeles became a breathing organism, gray, blue, silver, alive with motion, even when the streets were empty. The effect was eerie, hyper-real, almost too clear. He refined this look in Miami Vice, 2006, and Public Enemies, 2009, pushing the digital format further. The images had a sharpness that felt clinical but deliberate. When Mann shoots at night, the light source is always motivated.
I have absolutely nothing I want to do in India.
Neon signs, gas station fluorescents, car brake lights. He doesn't glamorize the image, he lets it exist. His cinematographers, like Dion Beebe and Paul Cameron, often shoot with available light, using minimal setup to preserve the feel of the street. Mann is obsessed with texture.
You understand the meaning of the word foreboding? As in badness is happening right now.
In Heat, 1995, he captured Los Angeles using a mix of long lenses and deep focus to compress space. The downtown shootout remains one of the most iconic action sequences ever filmed. Wide shots establishing geography, medium shots tracking the crew's retreat, close-ups catching shell casings bouncing off concrete. The scene breathes, it's chaotic but clear, and always anchored in place. His camera is often in motion, but not frantically. He prefers handheld or Steadicam rigs that drift naturally with the actors. Conversations in Mann's films aren't staged. They unfold, the camera gliding around to catch glances, silences, or shifts in tension. In The Insider, 1999, close-ups hover just a little too long. You feel the weight of every breath. every doubt.
Witness in the biggest public health reform issue in history.
Color in Mann's palette is mostly cool. Steel blues, slate grays, muted whites, but he knows when to break it. The jazz club scene in Collateral is warm and amber, glowing like a safe haven. Then, without warning, the mood shatters. The gunfire feels louder because the lighting was so soft. He's also known for using long lenses during close-ups. Faces appear compressed against the blur of a city skyline. It creates intimacy and isolation at once. Two people talking, surrounded by the endless lights of a place that doesn't care. Mann once said, "Cinema is about the architecture of behavior." That idea shows up in every frame. His visuals aren't about spectacle, they're about presence. A car at a red light, a man on a rooftop, a conversation just before everything changes. When you watch a Michael Mann film, you're not just seeing the city, you're inside it, breathing its rhythm, hearing the silence between lines, and watching as something quietly dangerous moves just out of frame. Terry Gilliam's camera doesn't just frame madness, it becomes part of it. His signature style is a chaotic swirl of wide-angle distortion, tilted compositions, and exaggerated movement that feels like a dream teetering on the edge of a panic attack.
Look how healthy and young I am because I laugh and smile all the time.
When Gilliam builds a shot, he's not trying to replicate reality, he's trying to overwhelm it. The most recognizable Gilliam technique is his use of extreme wide-angle lenses, particularly the 14mm. It's so associated with his work that cinematographers sometimes refer to it as the Gilliam. He uses it not for grandeur, but for claustrophobia. When a character leans into frame, usually confused, manic, or terrified, the lens warps their face, stretches the background, and shoves every detail into the viewer's space. In Brazil, 1985, this technique turns a bureaucratic world into a surreal prison of ducts, filing cabinets, and fluorescent tubes, all curving ominously toward the camera.
It's time for you to grow up and accept responsibility.
Everything's connected, cause and effect. Our job is to trace the connections and reveal them.
Gilliam often shoots from low angles, looking up at his characters while ceilings, chandeliers, or clouds loom above them. This makes the world feel like it's pressing down, distorted and off balance. In Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, 1998, the camera rolls, zooms, and warps like it's tripping right alongside Raoul Duke.
The race was definitely underway.
In 12 Monkeys, 1995, scenes are framed at strange diagonals, giving the future a fractured, unstable quality that matches the story's looping timeline. Movement in Gilliam's shots is theatrical and unpredictable.
5 cops like you was dusted to the eyeballs.
He loves crane shots, sudden whip pans, and dolly moves that glide past actors as if the camera is another character trying to keep up. But even when static, the composition never feels calm. In The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, 2009, his fantasy realms are framed with vertical symmetry and depth, often using practical sets layered with foreground props that give his shots a dense, immersive texture. Lighting is just as expressive. Gilliam plays with harsh contrast, colored gels, and bouncing light to add visual chaos.
It's been a while, but this came with a price.
Any child born at the age of 16 belonged to him.
No.
In Baron Munchausen, 1988, torchlit castles glow with warm flicker, while outside scenes burst with unreal blues and oranges. He's not concerned with realism, he's concerned with tone. The more theatrical, the better. Framing-wise, he breaks every rule. Characters are often shoved to the corners, swallowed by background detail, or placed in distorted reflection. In The Fisher King, 1991, a romantic dance through Grand Central Station unfolds in slow motion, with the camera circling gently in a wide arc. One of the rare moments where Gilliam allows stillness to convey emotion rather than chaos. Gilliam once said, "I like to create worlds that are just one step removed from our own." That's why his camera never settles. It twists reality, exaggerates scale, and challenges symmetry. Even simple conversations feel manic when the lens is too close, the lighting is too hot, and the actor is staring straight down the barrel. In a Gilliam film, the camera is never just observing. It's participating. It's part of the delusion. And whether it's flying through a castle or hovering 6 inches from a character's nose, it's always asking the same question: what if the world was just slightly wrong? Paul Verhoeven shoots satire like it's fact. His most iconic shots are clean, brightly lit, and brutally direct, often making the absurd feel disturbingly normal. Where other directors use shadows to conceal violence, Verhoeven puts it under fluorescent lights. His visual style is confrontational. It doesn't flinch, and it rarely winks at the audience. In RoboCop, 1987, Verhoeven sets the tone immediately. A boardroom meeting turns into a bloodbath, but the scene is lit like a corporate training video. Flat, sterile, and overexposed. The violence is shocking, not because of how it's shot, but because of how ordinary the setting feels. This contrast is intentional. Verhoeven uses high-key lighting and wide framing to make his dystopias feel disturbingly plausible. Cinematographer Joss Vacano once said their goal was to make the future look banal but brutal. That philosophy runs through Starship Troopers, 1997, where war is staged like a recruitment commercial. The battle scenes are covered like documentary footage, smooth tracking shots, clean compositions, no visual stylization, but the content is grotesque. Soldiers torn apart by bugs, civilians cheering for fascist ideals. Verhoeven's camera doesn't dramatize the violence, it presents it as propaganda, and that's the trick.
1, 2 legs, you get me?
The satire lands because the shots play it straight. Another signature Verhoeven move is the use of first-person POV, often to make the viewer complicit. In RoboCop, Murphy's transformation is shown through his own eyes. The camera sees doctors standing over him, systems booting up, faces reacting to his rebirth. We don't see RoboCop in third person until he's fully functional. This technique humanizes the machine while simultaneously distancing us from his autonomy. In Basic Instinct, 1992, the camera turns voyeuristic. Long lenses, slow zooms, and mirrored compositions give the viewer the feeling of spying. Sharon Stone's infamous interrogation scene is shot in a sterile white room with piercing overhead lights and a locked-down camera. There's no music, no movement, just the unbearable stillness of tension and power shifting in real time. Verhoeven also makes heavy use of media inserts. Fake news, broadcasts, commercials, and public service announcements interrupt the narrative in both RoboCop and Starship Troopers. These segments are shot in the exact style of 1980s TV. Cheesy sets, laugh tracks, synthetic lighting, but they serve a serious purpose to show how violence and ideology are sanitized by presentation. Color in Verhoeven's films is often bold and direct. He uses primary colors, blues, reds, whites, to echo state power and military precision. Blood is always vivid. Fire is always orange. There's no subtle grading. Everything feels immediate and hyper-real. He rarely uses handheld. Most of his shots are composed on tripods, cranes, or dollies, keeping the image stable and clean, even when the content is anything but. In Total Recall, 1990, the action unfolds in smooth motion even as bodies are blown apart and memories are erased. The camera moves like it's filming an ad. That's the point.
Don't hurt me. We're married.
Consider that a divorce.
Verhoeven once said, "I'm not interested in reality. I'm interested in what reality hides." His shots may look objective, even plain, but they're built to provoke, built to disturb. And once you realize what he's showing you, it's already too late to look away. Tony Scott didn't shoot scenes, he detonated them. His signature style is all motion, color, and heat. The shots come fast. The lights flare, the frames bleed orange, blue, and red. Scott's visual language is a hyperkinetic blend of overexposure, whip pans, and aggressive cutting. If Ridley Scott paints with shadows, Tony paints with fire. From Top Gun, 1986, to Man on Fire, 2004, his style evolved from stylish action to visual overload. In the 80s, he was known for golden hour silhouettes and slow-motion hero shots. By the 2000s, his camera never stopped moving. In Domino, 2005, he pushed his visual style to the extreme. Step printing, double exposures, strobe cuts, and bleach bypass processing all collide in a chaotic, high-contrast frenzy. Every scene feels urgent, even when nothing is happening. It's cinematic adrenaline.
You're probably wondering how a girl like me arrived here.
One of Scott's trademarks is the use of hypersaturated color palettes. He leans hard into extremes, deep blues, scorched yellows, and neon greens. In Man on Fire, entire scenes are graded to look scorched by the sun, with washed out whites and blistering reds. He often achieves this through bleach bypass or cross-processing, which creates that blown-out, gritty texture. Camera movement is constant. He'll dolly, crane, pan, and zoom within a single shot. He favors long lenses for action, compressing space so bullets and explosions feel dangerously close. In Enemy of the State, 1998, he pairs long tracking shots with satellite imagery and whip-fast crosscuts, creating a sense of technological surveillance before it became a cinematic cliche.
Freeze there, times 10.
We have reason to believe that Mr. Zavitz may have passed sensitive materials to you.
What kind of material?
Scott loved shooting through objects, raindrops on glass, spinning fans, firelight, chain link fences. These elements add depth and a layer of obstruction as if the audience is eavesdropping. In Crimson Tide, 1995, he frames Denzel Washington and Gene Hackman through layers of blinking lights and steel panels, reinforcing the claustrophobia of the submarine while keeping the camera active. Editing is where Scott truly let loose. He cut fast, but never without rhythm. His later films, Deja Vu, 2006, The Taking of Pelham, 123, 2009, use jump cuts and flash frames not to confuse, but to disorient with intent. Every frame is loaded, every cut screams. Lighting in Scott's films is often aggressive.
Who is this? This is a man who's gonna give the city a run for the money.
He uses hard backlights, intense flare, and color gels to create atmosphere.
You think you know what's coming? You don't have a clue.
Scenes in True Romance, 1993, bounce between soft pinks and sharp blues.
Baby! Clarence? I'm a married man, buddy.
Even intimate dialogue sequences are lit like music videos. He doesn't separate emotion from visual energy, he fuses them. His cinematographers, like Paul Cameron and Dan Mindel, helped translate Scott's vision into practical chaos. They'd shoot with multiple cameras, allowing Scott to grab spontaneous moments and piece together fast-paced sequences that still felt emotionally grounded. Tony once said, "More is more." I like to shoot this out of everything. That philosophy defines his camera.
90% of the movie on a train which is running on between 50 and 70 miles an hour, and I tried not to be inhibited by the fact that I was shooting on a moving train. I said, what would I do if I was on stage? So, one of my goals was to try and handle the situation like I was standing on the ground here.
It's bold, chaotic, and relentless. A Tony Scott frame is instantly recognizable. Burning colors, spinning motion, characters caught in silhouette. But underneath the noise is precision, control, intensity with a purpose. He didn't just make action look cool, he made it feel combustible, and by the time his camera slows down, you realize you've been holding your breath the whole time. And that's it. 10 directors, 10 iconic shots. If you learned something new or just enjoyed the ride, a like and subscribe goes a long way. Thanks for watching.